Hi guys, thanks for joining me. In this little video, we're going to have a look at this new template set that I've just brought out. In the UK, we have Armistice Day or Remembrance Day, and usually there is a poppy appeal that goes along with it. So what I've done is I've created a set that allows you to make these sort of traditional Remembrance Day poppies. And the idea is the template set is quite discounted, and then you can make these poppies to sell and raise money for the appropriate charity. They also do actually make some quite nice field poppies as well, but we'll get into that once we get into the tutorial. I'm going to quickly run through everything that you're going to need to make this little project, and then we're going to jump straight in. You're going to need the template set, and you're going to need some of your fluff, and this is our bright red and the moss green. The colours that I've used in these poppies here, I've laid out at the bottom here so you can see what they are, and all of these colours are available on our website. You're going to need your felting surface. This is a 24 gauge wire which I've cut in half, and one wire will do one whole poppy. You're also going to need some green florist tape, that's what I've used here. You're going to need your felting needles. And as always, I use my little pocket scale so that I can weigh out very small increments of wool for these templates. So all of the weights and measures that I mentioned throughout the tutorial will be based on, obviously, our wool. Other wools may vary. So that's the brief overview. We're going to jump straight in and make the poppy. What I'm quickly doing here is just weighing out my wool. I think I forgot to mention in the overview that you do need a little bit of black as well. So I'm using my pocket scale, and these can be picked up quite cheaply on eBay. And for the petal template, you're going to need 2 bits of fluff that are 0.4 in weight. For the leaf, you're going to need 0.4 in the green, and for the little centre, you're going to need 0.1. To begin, I'm going to quickly run through how to fill the petal. I'm then going to do the leaf in full. I don't want to make the tutorial too long, so but the leaf is a little more complicated. You're going to make 2 of these petal shapes. Grab your 0.4 grams of fibre and just break off a bit of it. I like to break off a bit because if you do have any thin spots, you can use this to sort of backfill. Stuff it in your template and then start working the edges. Get it all in there. And you want light stabs. You don't want to be driving into your surface. You'll get a little bit of your fluff sticking to the surface. That's inevitable, but we don't want it attached permanently. So I'm just working over my whole template. This is a 40 spiral. This is one of my favourite go-tos. It's a very light needle, so you get a good amount of working time with your fibre. All over, all the way around those edges. And these templates are designed so that you can run your needle right around those edges. Then we're just going to lift, stuff it all back in, and go over. So it just starts holding its shape. I'm then going to add in a little bit more. I'm going to swap up to a 38 spiral, which will felt things a little bit faster. And we're going to be felting these so that they are firm, because we want them to hold a nice crisp shape. This wool does a good job at that. So working it all over, and if you can hear, I'm just piercing that top top crisp layer of the foam. I'm not driving my needle in. You can see we've got good shape coming. Back in the template. And the weights and measures are a good guide, but if you use a little bit over or a little bit under, it's absolutely fine. So basically, excuse me, you keep going with that and refining and refining and refining until it's nice and firm. And take it out, just tidy up your edges a little bit. And when you tidy up your edges, this is particularly fluffy. I would have carried on, but I want to do the leaf. This is a simple shape. So when you do your edges, don't drive your needle in. If you drive your needle in, then you start making an indentation. So you just want to lightly just tidy up the edges a little bit. Once we iron the petals and we do a little trim, they come out very nicely. So keep putting it back in your template, going over it till it's nice and firm. You pick it up, feel it. If you've got any thin sort of spots, use your extra little bit and backfill. So you're going to make 2 of those. This one has been ironed, which is why it looks so neat. But you're going to make 2 of those, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to show you how to make the leaf. To make the leaf, it's a little bit more fiddly because you've got all of these sort of points. The template's a little more intricate. And there's also going to be a wire. This is half. You're going to need 1/2 of the 24 gauge wire, but we're not going to need that yet. So I'm going to put that over there. With any of my templates that have intricate points or sort of little bits like this, you want to fill from the points in towards the middle. You don't want to sort of stuff the template like this and then try to pull these fibres out to the tips. That won't work. You'll end up with sort of a blobby mess. Grab your fibres and just roughly pull it in half. And we're going to start very, very lightly, just a small pinch. And what I like to do is I like to fold them in half. And I'm going to go in on my very light needle, my 40 spiral. And just bring that right up into the tip. And what I'm doing is I'm just tacking it to the surface ever so lightly. Because that will just help everything hold in place. I'm just going to pull off another bit, fold it in half, and bring that fold up into that tip. And these sort of bits down here I'm just leaving fluffy in the middle so that they overlap. And the weights and measures are a guide. You know, if you use a little bit more or a little bit less, it's absolutely fine. What we're doing is we're putting down the first layer, then we're going to put in our wire, and then we'll put in another layer on top. And by using this sort of rolled edge here, when we put it up into the tip, it helps create a neater tip, because you don't have sort of fibres jutting out that way. They're sort of curved back round. So I'm just working my way down all of my tips. Just pulling off little bits. I think I might need a little more. into there. Last little bit. There we go. So what we have is just a sort of loose dare I do it? There we go. Of course, now getting it back into that is going to be the problem. But that's okay. You won't take your template off. I just wanted to show you where we were at. So, I mean, this is a hot mess right now, but I'm just going to pop it back in the template. Hope it behaves. As I said, you'll leave yours in the template for this whole process, but okay. Let me just work that back down into my template. So a little bit of light adhesion to the surface. So now what we're going to do is put our wire in. Half a 24 gauge wire. And we want a bit stuck out the bottom. So what's that? You're about three-ish centimeters stuck out the bottom, and then come up to where you're not at the tip. You don't want a wire poking out, so you want it just down into about here. Bend it over, creating a little loop, and then twist. Oops, there we go. So all we're doing is just creating a little loop of wire. Now the reason we're creating a loop rather than just a straight wire is this won't require any gluing. If you just wanted to use a straight wire, so I'm going to get my pliers in here. And just really get that nice and crimped. Yeah, so the reason we are creating that loop is so that when we put it in here and we lay our next layer of fibres on the top, the loop will hold the wire in place rather than gluing it. As many of you know, I don't have a lot of luck with glue. So anything that I can do to avoid the glue is greatly welcomed. Okay, so that's going to go in there like that. I can't lift this up because otherwise it will go everywhere again, but in the bottom there is a wiring hole. I don't know if you can see it, and that's where the wire is going to come through. So I'm just going to push that down through the wiring hole and just have our loop. That end needs to be a little bit more squished. You don't want a wire right out to the sides. You always need to be able to get some fluff around it. So I'm just going to open up that middle bit there. That's looking good. I'm making this look a lot more fiddly than it actually is. So there's our wire. Grab the rest of your fluff. And we're going to do exactly the same thing again. Obviously now there's a wire in there. so we're going to be careful, but we are going to make sure that we lay these fibres down and that we felt all over that wire. So same as before. Oh, that's a bit much. And we're going to pay particular attention to our edges, just making sure we run around the outside of the template. It's worth mentioning you don't have to wire your template, your leaf rather. Entirely optional. You could just glue a pipe cleaner in there if you wanted. There's no right or wrong way for doing these. So just getting right up into that tip, working down over the layer beneath. And what we're doing now is we are again making sure that we're getting that little piercing on the foam, because that means we're sort of getting this top layer right through to the bottom. Where am I? There. So in the tip, working out to the middle. The tip, and obviously here you're going to have quite a sort of, this is where all the wires are coming around, you've got that little twist, so nice and gently and this last little bit will go in here. So once you've got all your fibre in there, and as I think I mentioned before, if you need a little bit extra, just bring it in. I've used a light needle, that's my 40 spiral. So what I'm now going, actually I'm just going to take it up, is I'm going to take it up, pull it off, and you can see we've got rough, but we've got our little shape. Fun getting it back into the template. So wiring in, obviously make sure your template is still the same way around. If you can lift your project without taking it out the template, you know, do that. But if it does come out, don't worry. As you can see, it's so easy to put back in the template. And I'm just going to work over it. All the way over, right up into those tips. I'm running my needle around the edge up the side of the template. See, I've got a thin spot coming here, my wire's showing. So I'm just turning it over and I'm going to felt it back the other way. I tend to find the surface, the side that you have facing the, what's this, foam mat, generally comes out a little bit neater, a little bit smoother. So pick it up, turn it back over, felt it back the other way again. And I've got this, you know, if you can see, my wire. A wire there poking out. The joys of using a green wire with green wool. I'm just going to grab a little bit of my spare, just a pinch. And put it over that area there. Just going to work it up into that point. Spread it about. And you want, if you need to add in a little bit, and this goes for any project, not just this one, when you add in, you put the bulk where you need to cover, but then you allow these frizzy bits to kind of spread out, and that's what sort of blends it out into the rest of your project. This is a short fibre. We stock New Zealand carded bat, so it's a short fibre and it blends to itself, and you know, blending colours as well. It's a really, really nice fibre to work with. So let's flip it over again, and we are going to work this back and forth a few times. You want this firm. I'm using a very light needle, so this is actually taking me slightly longer. But the 40 spiral it's kind of my go-to. Let's bring in the 38 spiral. You know, it will get to a point where the larger needles won't necessarily work for you, and that's when the spirals really come into their own. Spirals will generally get places that other needles can't. So I can really start to feel this firming up under the needle now. I'm just backing and forthing it. I think we're just about there. Changing back to my lighter needle. So when you think you've finished, just go over it once more. It's not going to hurt it. Make sure you get up that middle, mind your wires. You can probably hear the popping. That's when I'm hitting my wire. So it is going to happen. It is in there. My opinion is a nice loose grip on your needle, so that if you do hit something like the wall of the template, it's a good habit to get into, just to not lift your needle up too high. If you lift it up high, you can bring it down on the sides of the template. But if you do hit a hard thing, if you've got a loose grip on the needle, it will sort of slide through your fingers a little better. You can certainly use a multi-tool in the templates that are sort of less intricate, more open. I generally work with a single. Right, I think we're done. I'm going to call that done. So pop it out of the template, pull the wire out, and you can see that's holding its shape quite nicely. Lots of frizzy bits. I'm not going to worry too much about that, because the ironing and the trimming will take care of that. If you want to, you can go in with your needle, but you want to go in at a very acute angle. I'm not. I'm going to leave it for the ironing and the scissors to sort out. So there's the leaf. Our wire's in there quite nicely. So you will have made 2 of your petals. The circle, the centre, is 0.1 grams of the black, and random white one, literally make it up into a ball and stuff it in the template and get the wires down, get the fibres down into the template. And all you are doing with this is just going round and round and round. It doesn't take very long. I'm on my my 38 spiral. All the way round. Just pick it up, put it back in. This one is seconds. The leaf is the trickiest one. So you know, there's your centre. It's seconds. The leaf, if you wanted to, I mean, I've made the whole leaf. If you just wanted to make them quicker, you could just make sort of that part of the leaf. With the poppies, I've got the whole leaf at the back, but it's really only this sort of little bit that you see. So if you wanted to make it slightly quicker, you could just leaf it down to there and then have a wire the rest of the way. So, you know, options for expediency. I don't know why I'm fiddling with that, put it away. So there's our centre, our leaf is done. You will have done 2 of the red or whatever colour you're doing. The different colours, I believe, have different significances. Red is for people, purple is for animals, and the white is generically one for peace. I don't know if there are any other colours. Those are just the 3 that I'm aware of. Obviously, you can do them in any colour you want. So once you've got all of your bits like this, we're going to iron all of the pieces so that it gives them that nice smooth surface. What I've done off camera is just finish felting up this petal so it's nice and firm. The iron is on hot and it's up as far as it will go on a linen setting, and as you can probably hear, it's steaming away. I've got it up on maximum steam. We're not going to iron this black centre part, and also this may look a little frizzy around the edges, but that's okay. Don't worry about felting your centre too neatly to begin with, because we're going to attach it, so a lot of those little fibres will incorporate then. But for the ironing, grab your petals, and it's not going to be a driving motion. You want to pressure and just a little bit of a jiggle is all that's needed. So here we go. And then flip it over, and I usually do that sort of 4 times on each side. Sorry, 4 times, couple of times on each side. And now you can see that this petal is super thin, and that surface, let's see if I can get a close up. Look how smooth that surface is. Really, really nice. So we do the same for the leaf, but obviously be aware that there's that wire, so don't pick it up by the wire once it comes out. So, pressure and a wiggle, pressure and a wiggle. There we go. And again, really, really smooth surface. So I'm going to clear this away now. You do that for your petals, your leaves, but not the centres. Leave the centres. And then we're going to grab a nice little sharp pair of scissors and just trim up the edges. Here's our little collection. We've got the petal that I've just ironed, and the other one from here's one I prepared earlier, camp. And then we've got our leaf. centre. Grab a pair of scissors. Sharp tippy scissors are good, and all we're going to do is take off these sort of little really wild stray bits. And just go round. This really does neaten it up. You can see how neat that is now. And there's the fluffy one. It's just the little bits that we're taking off. So you're going to work round all of your pieces. See, again, we've got the frizzy bits. And that just really neatens it up. So go around your petals and your leaf with a good, nice, sharp pair of scissors, and then we're going to start assembly. To begin assembly, we're going to start with the petals, and you'll notice that they've got a curve, and then there's this sort of pokey out dented bit here. And what you're going to do is overlap. Let me grab the finished one. So you're going to overlap them. Not by very much, just a bit. And grab a, I'm going to grab my 38 spiral, and just, this is now doing the thing that I always say not to do. We're going to drive right through to join these petals together. Only in this middle part. You don't want to join them together here. But lots of really driving through stabs. You can see all the fluff coming out the back. This is my 38 star. And you can see it starting to curve those petals. You really want to make sure that it's very, very well felted in the middle. So you've got something that looks a little bit like that. Next, you're going to need the other half of your 24 gauge wire, and you're going to bend it in half and create a thin loop at the top. You can possibly do this one of two ways: either cut a very, very acute angle on your wire and poke it through. I generally find that with the 24 gauges they're a little bit flimsy for doing that, so I'm going to use my awl. It's going to make a hole, two holes very close together and right where those petals overlap in the middle. So now you can see my two holes there, there and there. And then it should be a simple case of just putting these through, but we'll see. There we go. So now we've got the wire out the back. What I do now is I open those wires on the back so that they come out flat. Turn it over, and now we're going to attach our centre. And I find that having those wires off to the side just kind of really keeps them out of the way. Grab your circle template and pop it back in the middle. And grab your needle and just start by just poking around the edges in a few places, just to start getting it held down in place. And then go round and round and round. See if I can get it a bit closer. And all I'm doing is going around and around the edge. I'm going to do a couple of stabs across the middle. And again, we're using that driving technique. But mostly just around the outside. And that will just give you that little bit of a domed centre, so it's not quite so flat. Lift it from your surface. And take your wires and twist the head of your poppy, and those wires will twist down the stem until you get to the end. Now it's at this point, if you're making one of the charity poppies, it needs to be flat, so the head and the stem are vertical. But if you're just making a field poppy, and scrunch your petals up and have the stem coming out of the bottom, and that makes a lovely shaped field poppy. So depending on what you're going to do, we're making the charity poppy, so I'm going to bring my stem flat at the back, and I think the top petal is the one that is at the front, if memory serves. I could be wrong, but I'm going to do it. I think it looks good that way. So there's our poppy. I'm going to wind some tape onto our stems now. A little bit of florist tape. Don't need much. I'm going to start with the leaf, and you just break off a little bit. This is way too much for what I'm doing, but hold the end, pull it to activate the sticky, and it sticks to itself, but it doesn't stick to you. At least that's the theory. Hold the tape on the wire and just wrap around until you get to the end and pull it off. And I'm going to use another bit for the poppy. So pull, you can feel it, sort of the surface of it changes. Hold it right at the top, loop it round so it locks on itself, or wrap it round rather, and then wrap down, sort of hold it at an angle, it will wrap down the stem. When you get to the bottom, just rip it off. And that just covers those two. Then place your leaf wherever you want it. I'm going to have mine about there. And just wrap those two wires together so it holds them nicely in place. Now I'm going to go over this with another layer of florist tape just to seal those two in. So I'm going to start where they meet. Hold it, wrap it round on an angle, and work all the way down the stem. This little bit of wire that I've got at the bottom, before I get to that end, I'm just going to chop that off. I'm going to take the florist tape ever so slightly past the end and then come back up and use up the rest of that tape there, so we've got a nice stem on it. There we have it, one poppy. And again, you can, if you're making the field poppies and you've got the head sort of more horizontal to the stem, you can have the leaves at the base. You know, you play with it however you want. But there is your little poppy. And as I said, you can make them in various colours. There we go. So thank you very much for joining me. I hope you have enjoyed this little tutorial. If you have any questions or comments, just pop them in the description box below. I have links to everything in the description box below. Do feel free to shoot me a message if you have any questions at all. Please do subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon to be notified when I post new videos. I wish you all a very crafty day.